We get out into our Produce a Dam show here in our Continentals, and we have 2 entries here, and both quality representatives of their breed. And I think when you get down to it, you just study our 2 entries. The entry to my left here, which had our reserve champion heifer and our reserve continental heifer, those 2 are awfully nice. We talked about some of those, those 2 heifers having some width and some power, but still being basic in terms of cow function, in terms of their rib and their structure. So I really like those 2 heifers. Those 2, that entry right there is going to be our champion. This entry to my right is going to be our reserve. We talk about maybe we could clean up the bigger heifer's shoulder and maybe just make her just a little smoother, more tucked up there. And this younger bull calf here is one that just reads a little bit grippy today, and probably not help that he's got a dose of the scours in him, but one that I think fills out with time could certainly be a nice bull calf for the young lady. So congratulations to both our entries. Let's give them a round of applause.
For Produce of Dam, your reserve champion is Kylie Conine from 56 Ranchers 4-H, and your grand champion is Kiara Conine from Ramona Stars 4-H. Next in the ring, we have Market B. We're starting off with Class 1.
Well, the young man brings us a nice single entry to get our market show started here, and a calf that I think just reads really practical. You look at him through his rib and his structure and his foot. It's a calf that reads real easy feeding and practical, and that's why I wasn't surprised when I got my hands on him to see him touch so mellow back over his last ribs, even for being a lighter weight steer. It's a calf that certainly has a good grading potential on the quality grade side of the grid, and so and still a calf that's able to pull together with some balance and some levelness and extension from the profile. And so a nice way to get started. Maybe we could just kind of crack him open in the turn and the shape to his forerib, maybe make him just a shot more massive and expressive there right behind his shoulder, but a calf that certainly has a lot of nice things to appreciate. And so let's put our hands together here for our Class 1 single entry.
Your first place for Class 1 is Robert Wilson from Ramona FFA. Next in the ring, we have Market Beef Class 2.
I'm asking you. Oh, I don't know. Oh, okay. And if you have a famous speaker, you should go ahead. Yeah. Just do whatever you need. You're not gonna break it.
Getting to class 2 of our market steer show, and the young lady's kind of yellow and white paint, or roan, is one that I think wins this class pretty logically, in my opinion. You know, we have 3 cattle here that have muscle and the right kind of finish, considering the stage they're at and their maturity pattern. This calf is the one that does the basics of that correct, but still couples it with the extras of some added show ring look and some presence from the profile. And that calf is the most overwhelming in terms of the shape of his forerib and his body. He's the biggest and stoutest out of his pen set. When you get your hands on him, that's the steer that meets your hand with the most square shape and turn behind his shoulder and back over his rib and loin. And like I said, that calf just stops and poses with such a quality look. That's a real nice way to get the show started with Class 2 market steers. Congratulations to you, young lady. A bit of a closer call between 2 and 3, but at the end of the day, I just side with the young lady's red steer because that's the bigger-footed, stouter constructed steer that's just got more mass and turn to him behind his shoulder and back out of his hip. That's the bigger pen steer. And I think whenever you set the cattle into motion, between him having a bigger foot and a deeper heel, he's one that's able to stay more collected, more comfortable as the cattle circle the ring. The young lady smoke heifer is one that reads extremely easy feeding. From the amount of finish that she's got, that's definitely a market-ready animal, and is one that I think kind of embodies some of the Charlie influence there with some extra shape and expression, but one that's just a little slicker haired and that heifer is one that's smaller footed and gets tighter about her joint work, a little straighter up front, and so structurally just not quite as comfortable or flexible as what our others are. And when we talk about some show ring balance, one that gets a little tighter in her spine. And so a nice way to get things going in Class 2. Let's put our hands together again for those 3 exhibitors.
For FFA Market B, for Class 2, in 3rd place you had Mia Biven from San Marcos FFA. In 2nd place, you had Kaylee Williamson from Valley Center FFA. In 1st place, you have Ashlyn Wilson from El Capitan FFA. Next up in the ring, you have FFA Market Beef, Class 3.
bit of a tough class, and all 5 of these steers have some things to appreciate, and all 5 of these steers certainly have things that you want to change. And so that's what makes it challenging from a judge's perspective. And I guess you just have to draw a line and figure out where you stand on certain issues. And so I'll be the first to admit our class winner needs to be better structured, needs to be cleaner in his hock and square as he goes away from you. But it hasn't hindered his ability to lay on finish. And so I'll make that decision and stand by it. And so this calf is the mellowest touch in one of the group, and is obviously the heaviest muscled and stoutest constructed steer that's got the most power and kind of reads to be the most terminally driven from a carcass value aspect. This steer is the most impressive when you get your hands on him behind his shoulder and back out of his rib and loin. It's an extremely powerfully constructed steer that I really just wish was better structured. But like I said, it hasn't stopped him from being market ready, and so I'll make a call and let him get by in this particular class. The calf that I wish I could have handled stands in second, because that's the large outline, really nice looking, attractive, sharp fronted show steer of the bunch. One that reads just a little bit flatter and drier about his rib. I wish I could just kind of drop him and soften him there back through his rib, through his rear rib and lower flank. A calf that certainly owns the advantage in terms of structural integrity, as well as extension and frame size relative to our class winner. But of the class, that one maybe reads the barest and thinnest finished of any, and that's what I'd like to change about him the most. Is I wish I could just make him a little bolder and more practical in his rib shape, and just see him be a little further along in terms of his finish maybe compared to a couple of them. But a calf that's certainly good enough and owns the advantage to the class in terms of look and structural integrity. If y'all 3 exhibitors want to go ahead and pull around and profile them this way, and we'll talk to y'all next. So the young man's, excuse me, the young man's steer that ends up third is one that reads extremely sound and functional in his kind. That's a calf that's level in his top line, but one, when you get your hands on him relative to some other steers in this class, maybe becomes the plainest in the shape of his muscle right behind his shoulder. He reads a little flatter in the shape to his forerib, and that's why he's not quite as impressive in that regard in terms of a handle aspect of having quite as much muscle or turn down the top side of his skeleton, but a smooth, sound-made steer that's certainly market ready. And speaking of smooth, sound-made steers that are market ready, that certainly embodies our 4th place steer that the young man's showing. One that is certainly practical and easy feeding and kind of low input in his look. A calf, though, that of the class maybe reads as plain as any up front through the front portion of his body. I just kind of want to extend him out and make him a little bit more attractive from a show ring aspect. The calf, too, in terms of structure, maybe is just a little bit more push forward in the angle to his shoulder. I'd like to lay him back there, give him more give and reach out of his front end structurally, but a very nice market-ready steer nonetheless to be in 4th. Young lady steer that rounds out the set has a lot of frame size and extension, a calf that could certainly reach a heavy market weight if given the opportunity. It's a calf that stays sound and loose in motion. A calf, though, that when you get behind the cattle becomes the flattest and plainest in terms of his power and his muscle. A calf that really starts to slope out of his hip and maybe gets a little bit off from a balance perspective, but still a good class of steers nonetheless. Let's put our hands together for those 5 exhibitors.
For FFA Market Beef, Class 3, in 5th, you had Taki Gutierrez from San Marcos FFA. In 4th, you had Jameson Ewig from Fallbrook FFA. In 3rd, you had Tank Audibert from Julian FFA. In 2nd, you had Allison Cave, Escondido FFA. And your 1st place, Cadence Ewig from Fallbrook FFA. Next up for FFA Market Beef, Class 4.
awesome class comes in next, and I like these top 3 steers a good deal. And starting off with the young lady's black steer is one that I think kind of combines the strengths of the 2 steers behind them. You talk about a calf that's got real width and substance underneath, a calf that's got a lot of bold turn and shape to his forerib and to his upper rib, and that's fueled all that extra mass and turn he has behind his shoulder when you get your hands on him, and he continues that advantage by being the most massive and powerful back over his rib and loin, back out of a stout square hip, a big lower quarter and stifle, and a calf that still is extremely sound and functional whenever you get him on the lead, a calf that's still able to pull together with the balanced fat steer look from the profile, a very logical place to start in my opinion. The calf, the next probably toughest decision for me in the class was between 2 and 3 because those cattle are different in their types and kinds. At the end of the day, the cattle I think that best complements the kind of our class winner is the young lady's yellow steer. That calf is extremely mellow and practical in his rib. He's extremely soft and smooth over his last 2 when you get your hands on him. And a calf that just reads ultra practical and easy feeding, extremely well balanced, extremely fresh, both in terms of his finish and his skin and hair. That's a really well balanced calf. What gets him beat, he's not quite as square or shapely in the shape or texture of his muscle as what either of the cattle are on either side of him. And that calf gets just a little bit flatter in terms of his pin set and lower quarter and stifle relative to our class winner. And so I'd like to make him just a little bit more powerful there, and that's why he ends up at 2 for me today. The calf that ends up in 3rd is our smoke, one that's a little slicker haired, maybe just doesn't pull together with quite as much balance or attractiveness or what our top 2 do in terms of him being just a little bit more jammed up and conventional ahead of his shoulder, being just a nickel tighter in his spine. Not quite as attractive there out of his pin set as he gets a little bit more slope from hooks to pins. Just a calf really that's just very basic and fundamental in its kind though. That's a wide, thick, muscular animal that's market ready in terms of finish. And so in terms of doing the basics and the fundamentals of being a market steer, that calf certainly does it extremely well. A young man's calf that ends up in 4 is one that I think, in terms of thinking feedlot, fat steers, this guy hits me as that kind exactly. Sound, big-bodied, easy feeding with enough muscle. One, though, that maybe just doesn't fit in or maybe not quite as attractive from a show ring standpoint. A little plainer ahead of his shoulder, a little bit weaker in his spine, has some extra set to his back leg. And so I think if we can kind of tweak some issues there in that regard to make him fit more in line with the show ring look, I could certainly slide them up a couple spots because that's a good basic kind of real world cattle that'll always be valuable at the end of the day. Steer in 5, I like standing still, okay? I think he's got a good look. I think he's got some stoutness to his foot and bone. I think he's got some power to him from behind. And when you get your hands on him, my issues with this guy is in motion. He's the straightest up front. He really starts to roll and pigeon when you watch him come at you in his front foot. And a guy that I just don't think is moving around quite his best today. He's actually looked like he's kind of limping a little bit. And so I wish he felt better to kind of give him his full showing and give him a better shot. But a calf, though, that's high cutability and shapely, lean, has some power. I just wish he moved better structurally today to help him slide up a little bit better. The calf that rounds out the class is kind of the opposite story. He's one that I think is extremely sound and fluid in motion. I love the stride he has. I think he feels his track very comfortably and accurately and stays level in his top line while doing so. Unfortunately, that becomes the lightest muscle calf of the class. And so I just wish we could power that guy up from end to end and give him just a little bit more kind of terminal merit. But I ask you please nicely, let's put our hands together for those exhibitors in that class of market steers.
For FFA Market Beef, Class 4, in 6th place, Roxy Pina from Valley Center FFA. In 5th place, Maud Hudson from Fallbrook FFA. In 4th place, Giovanni Rodriguez from San Marcos FFA. In 3rd place, Cassidy Ewig from Fallbrook FFA. In 2nd place, Abigail Cotton from Valley Center FFA. And in 1st, Aaron Hofflinger from Escondido FFA. Next in the ring for FFA Market Beef is Class 5.
Yes, yes, do you need me?
That next class is usually here, I think, after that, I think you have some decisions and calls to make to figure out where you lie. And so, the young man staff that brings this class, I feel like does so pretty easily, in my opinion, because that's a lot of scout muscular steer that's hardly driven. He's born and ready. He's good finish. That's a practical fast steer that's sound and mellow. But at the end of the day, he just comes with some extra look and presence and balance here. And some eyes that you can profile and maintains kind of a pressure and square shape behind the shoulders. What folks here in the two does. I also kind of prefer the shape and maturity there to his head, kind of how that fits in with the pressure look of our class center relative to our second place here. Our second place here today is that guy, Marcus Griffin. He is wide, he is extremely bold and robust in the center portion of his body. That guy's got the biggest hip, the most explosive lower quarter cycle in the whole class. I love just how massive and powerful that steer is, but unfortunately, I just got to see him build hip and coach better. I think more of trying to focus on strength, but nothing too bad. He still sounds enough. The real issue, though, is the guy is a little bit shorter, not quite as attractive or fresh, youthful there. His head shape, the guy's a little bit more jammed up with conventional head and shoulders. So I wish he just needed to be able to eye and attractive what our class trainers here does. Third through sixth is where it got interesting for me because all of them come with their issues, and some are more glaring than others. But I'll be the first one to admit this guy in third is still too straight. We've got to see him go better than any closer. But when you set his structural issues aside, that guy's got a lot of changes in his body. He actually has some plastic in third. I love just how sharp looking he is up front. That's the freshest pair, best pair of him on the glass. This guy, whenever you use your hands on him, he is in a pressure shoulder. That guy is square, fresh, ready to go. The shape, I love how he handles over his driven home, how he handles back over his last two. Unfortunately, though, we still got to have a good structure. This guy finds issues. He is sounder and has good sound structure. Instead of big legs to beat him, there's no doubt, in my opinion, he's inside our top two potentially in the class. Red steer in third is one that's extremely big footed, stout structure. I love how scout is extremely long body. I'd say left down the top line. Let the jacket throw over those powerful and shape his rib and forehead. Like that muscle mass behind the shoulders. This gap, though, is one that is, like I said, has a little bit of structural issue. One a little bit more push forward up front. Has an extra step to his line leg. Really only breaking and going. And this doesn't blend into what our customers here do. We want to have that guy finish on to make him blend smooth behind the shoulder. That is the point, and it's what our customers do. But a gap, you know, he's a little rough around the edges. I don't want to make him try to be a market carrier, but you have to appreciate it. Our fifth place here is one that we like from the balance standpoint. That's a good looking level base, smooth base here, extremely well balanced and sound. Whenever you use your hands on it, you look at the muscle tower, there's just not quite as much there. I make it a little more powerful, I make it a little bit more muscle all the way through. It's reliable what I'm talking about. This is around the opposite end, it's extremely easy, mellow, I love how practical he is about his rib and body, that you have certainly increased his marketing point, but also the point where he's a little past his response. I wish I could just take it back a little bit through this condition and freshen him up. We could lean that guy up and freshen him up, maybe a little bit of kind of youthful look down in this class. I think that would help fit him a little bit better in this class, because with his extra condition, he's just a little bit plainer behind the shoulder over his rib and loin. And so, nonetheless, very fast market rate here that certainly increases in when it goes better. Our game together, that young lady, and other slides. Class comes in next is a pretty logical class winner, in my opinion. It's a black and white paint shear. It's one that's the lightest, the stoutest, heaviest muscle speed in class. He's got the boldest turn to his story of the upper portion of his rib, and his fuel is just how massive and shapely he is behind his shoulder, back over his 12 to 13, and God is extremely wide, powerful from behind. Still stops with a quality look and a cap, albeit a little more push forward to shoulders, just a kick straighter up front. Maybe not quite just the longish stride, but the athletic spirit you see today. But the cap certainly has tons of PhDs and positive advantages in this particular set. Becomes a no-brainer in my opinion to win this particular class. The decision for me came between 2 and 3, and I think you could go either way. One of the steers has a slight advantage in terms of being just a bit stouter and bolder. The other steer has maybe a bigger advantage in terms of being a little smoother built, a little sounder footed, better structure, more comfortable and flexible in motion. And that's the calf that I outfit with in second. That would be the young lady steer right here. That's one that I do better footed, was impressive from a handle perspective or from a look perspective of the winner. The calf that falls in frame, like I said, he's just here to have the advantage in terms of being just a little more robust in the shape and frame. He's forward portion of his body. He probably got just a bit more to him when we step behind the calf than what compared to our second place here. He's one that's just a little bit closer, more open about his shoulders. He's got just a tick more pressure on him, the top side of his neck. Maybe he's quite as fresh or youthful as what our top team are. The calf that rounds out the class is certainly a sound structure, practice for one, being extremely mellow and soft back over his last ribs. He's certainly a market ready steer. He's one though that maybe falls out in terms of just being stout enough. I don't think that the further footed, narrow and constructed steer just has quite enough smooth arrival of the three in front of him. The calf that I just moved to make a little bit more powerful and muscular from in and in. If we do that, he certainly slides up a couple spots. So let's put a team together that way. We would end next year on final class with the Bay Market steers. We got two nice ones here. I chose to go with the young man. The young man steer is one that I think the biggest advantage is being a better footed, looser going calf that's just a whole lot sounder, more comfortable when you have to circle the ring, get the motion in the calf. There's more laid back in the shoulder, more appropriate to set to his hip and hind leg. That's a guy that's extremely big and practical. He's got muscle, he's powerful. He's one that's probably didn't show pressure. Maybe some games on relative to our second place here. That's nice to run in this last class. He's one that maybe doesn't maybe like perfect. He's a little bit weaker in the top line. I mean, he's rounded out his hip, maybe a little bit of extra depth to his body. But he has all the basics right. He certainly has to appreciate that. The young lady second place gap is one that maybe probably has just a little bit more shape and compression than you. Behind his shoulders and back to his lower quarter of the cycle. That's where that guy certainly knows the game and has more turn. There is a lower hip, and that's a good stout bone gap. Balance very good. Top line, but it has, he says in motion, it becomes a little bit tighter, more rigid on the hydrated framework. I wish I could give you just a little bit more set and cushion there to the lower joints. That way we can say just a little bit more athletic and mobile when we give it kind of motion. So again, we'll put our hands together for that final class. All right, well, let's get again. Please put our hands together for our It's been a heck of a show. It's been nice here, and the quality has been very, very good all the way off the top. It's been awesome to work with. And it's hopefully that's going to continue the rest of the day. With that being said, I'm not going to go through across each individual table again. Hopefully, what my thoughts are on those specifics here for our class winners. I will say that we get back out here and get all our class winners back out in the ring. I think it's going to be close. After we finished that last class, taking back over the team so far, there hasn't been one that's really jumped out at me, but clear cut, no doubt. These here, there's probably 3, 4, 5 of these here that appear to be second to fine. They're certainly right there in contention, depending on what you like. So I'll put the microphone down, take one more look, and then I'll take the champion and the marks. Young lady brings us second place yellow steering behind our champion one. But we talked about the class being super big audience, practical. You love kind of balance, fast spiritual forces, and just how fresh she is, how she gets together here in her profile. I love his build, love his structural integrity. We talked about the class, and maybe that one had the advantage in terms of extra softness through the plane. Maybe it wasn't quite as just impressive through his lower quarter and cycle as our young champion. Maybe not quite as square in the shape of his contour into a champion, but an awfully nice steer nonetheless. It certainly fits right on in his contention. I think it's between him, our class 1 winner, our paint, and then our other paint, our black and white steer there at class 6. Those are the 3 that get the closest between to me. But my second favorite, I thought it was a nice class. I'll keep those 2 together in our yellow jersey.
Natalie are here, so I'm chilling.
Oh, they're here today?
Yeah, I was like,
Oh,
oh,
cool.
you guys are a pleasant surprise.
That's nice.
Like, yeah, we throw a week. I said, all right.
I just go to lunch at 2:20.
Over here.
Gotta work good. I was going to move down and I have to. Is there any chance I can?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind if I just squeeze past you real quick? Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. That's how I am. I'll give you right here. We don't want to.
I'll be like grab my papers.
Yeah, let's just get one speaker working right now so they can start. So the power up. Oh, you might need another.
Check 1, 2.
All right, thank you for that brief intermission. Again, we just had 10 up 3. All right, in second place for 10 up 3, we had Escondido FFA. And in first place, we had Fallbrook FFA. We will be taking one more small break, and then we will continue on with our market fees 4-H.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Right around 4 o'clock, anything otherwise.
I'll sell milk over here. You'll see me in the guide.
Nope, that's cold milk. Chocolate milk, regular milk, $1. We got that. Yeah. That was kind of more than you did. Well, we should go into that power track. Oh, the AC.
I don't see provision.
And it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, I can get audio design to provide all that. That's cool. But it's just 6 o'clock. It's not daylight out there. You won't see me. 6 to 8. So even at 8, you barely see 100 minutes. Out of the horse all over again? The laser. Okay, is it humid? Oh, it's so. Okay. It is. I'm like. Is it for your house? I'm not. I'm macking a little bit. It's like I thought it was. We want the 10 spotlight at 7 o'clock.
Mic test.
They don't blow up. But then we need to we don't have staff. Tomorrow is where Robert. Sorry, I'll probably just bring you down there. If I remember. Dr. Milkland, oh, here, that's all the fun. Completely reinvented.
Next in the ring, we're going to have 4-H market beef with Class 8.
You can go in the fair. There's nothing. Give me a call back and I'll bring you over to the arena. This thing will probably be a little longer. I want to go through what we have at the arena to make sure you're all comfortable with it. Well, actually, tomorrow morning is over. Anyway, tell me when you have it. The hard line. You can't hear it up there. No? Because it's because you're running it. I'm sorry. I don't know your name. That's an Oscar. Can you give me a quick check on the microphone?
Check 1, 2.
Perfect. Thank you very much. For your 12 viewers on YouTube. It's huge. It's going to go viral.
awesome first class here in our 4-H market show, and the young man's heifer that starts out as our class winner is one that I think is just the freshest. It's the most attractive. It's the best balance cattle in this class, and it's one that's got the most presence here from the profile, and still for one that being the highest quality and freshest, it's also the one that's the boldest and most opened up in the turn to its forerib and center body, and that's fueled the extra power and the extra shape that she's got behind her shoulder, all the way back out of her rib and loin. That's an awfully nice heifer to get things started here in our 4-H show. 2 and 3 was the close call for me, and at the end of the day, I just sided with the young man's steer, that being second, excuse me. That's the larger outline, bigger frame steer that I think just projects with more pay weight. That's the calf that handles with more square shape and expression behind his shoulder. That's the calf that just has a little bit more extension, a little bit more balance. It's stronger in its top line and leveler back out of its hip. I like that calf to be in second pretty well. The calf that rounds out our class, the young man's heifer, is one that probably has a more rib and body, and that's the heavier finish, probably smoother, more mellow handling option of between 2 and 3. But that heifer is one that just gets a little bit too weak in her spine, too round out of her hip. I wish I could kind of redesign both of those things, and also just extend her out a bit to help make her balance a little bit better, because she does have the rib and body advantage, and I do like the dimension she has. I just wish I could make her balance better. Wish I could give her a little bit more square shape behind her shoulder. But a nice class to get things started. Let's put our hands together for those 3 exhibitors.
For 4-H market beef, Class 8. In third and second, you had Tristan Robinson from 56 Ranchers 4-H. In first place, you had Benson Pina from Valley Center Country 4-H. Next in the ring for 4-H market beef is Class 9.
Yeah, once you had a speaker, we'll point one that way, and this one will brief this one. I took Rick to get a bath and actually sliding on like a walking room and you like the water? He gets tired. Like, I bathe him and he's in and then I put him on the room table. That's how it's like. That's when it goes big.
We'll get Class 2 here into the ring, and these nice smaller class sizes make it pretty easy and quick for me to make my decisions, and it helps when things sort out logically, in my opinion at least. like it does in this class right here. The young lady that brings us our class-winning steer here up front is one, that calf is just extremely modern in terms of being a really attractive show steer. That calf's extremely fresh, he's sound, he's practical, and for one that reads to be that fresh and attractive from the profile, he still has plenty of muscle and power and turn there behind his shoulder, back down his top, extremely stout and square out of his hip. I love the way that calf balances. I love the way that calf's built. An awfully nice steer to go ahead and win this second class. Congratulations to you, young lady. The calf that ends up in third that the young lady's showing here in the middle is one that is a really, really stout structure. I love how big-footed and stout-boned that calf is. That calf's got a good look from the profile. He's one that's extremely extended and level-made. I love those things about him from the side. I just wish I could maybe drop him just a skosh softer in his flank, and because of that, he's also one that maybe isn't quite as mellow or soft or smooth over his last couple of ribs like the other two steers are in this class. But I do like the square shape and muscle he has. I do like the added look he has, and that's what keeps him in second in this class. The smoke steer that rounds out this set is one that just reads real big-ribbed and practical. I love the easy feeding, kind of low input look that he's got to him. That's a good real-world fat steer. One that maybe is just a little bit plainer in his profile view from the side. He's one that just gets a little bit more jammed up front, a little bit kind of rougher in his top line and back out of his hip. And when you set the cattle into motion, he's the one that just kind of isn't quite as comfortable or coordinated in where he's setting things down and putting them into the dirt. But hats off to the young lady for sticking with that steer and getting him stuck, even though he's giving her a hard time. So let's give her and our other two exhibitors in that class a nice round of applause.
For 4-H Market B for Class 9, in third, Christine White from Valley Center 4-H. In second place, Paige Palsick from Valley Center Country 4-H. And in first place, Hannah Haggerty from 56 Ranchers 4-H. Next in the ring, 4-H Market B, Class 10.
should be on the Facebook page, but I can't. No, it definitely would not. It'd be a link specific for the day. It should say Wednesday, 9:30. Yeah, and I have the code. Oh, I mean, they might have posted it, yes. Or the, wherever they posted, because they probably posted all the because we have 14 people out here, so they're getting. It's not. There's 2 YouTube pages, but I don't know if it's there. One is okay. I'm gonna copy. What's the name of it? This is
Another very, very good class comes in next, and I think all 4 of these cattle represent good kind of cattle. And in my opinion, the red and white paint heifer that wins this class does so rather logically, in my opinion, because that's one of the heavy muscled, wide-made, bold ribbed animals that's got plenty of power behind her shoulder. That's the freshest handling heifer in the class, and that's the one who also stops and poses with the most quality and presence from the side. I love that heifer's build. I love that heifer's just quality and look from the profile. A really, really nice way to lead things off in this class. I would like to maybe tone her down in her tail head just a little bit, but still that's taken away from a really good animal to go ahead and win this class. The decision for me was between 2 and 3, and I think that's the spot where you could argue a flip and justify it very easily either direction. In my opinion, I say that the black steer's got enough power and muscle because that's the market-ready steer that's smoother and mellower over his last rib when compared to our third-place gray and white steer. And this black steer is also one that's a whole lot smoother shouldered, a whole lot sounder when put into motion. I prefer that steer's foot shape and how clean and smooth his joint work is. And I think whenever you take a step back and look at him from the profile, that's also the calf that balances and blends together a whole lot better. I just prefer the way that steer is put together from the profile and also the way he's put together in terms of a structural build when compared to our third place steer. So congratulations to those young ladies up front. Our gray and white steer, like I said, is one that although is a little bit rounder and coarser in the way he's put together, I'd certainly like to fix the way he's built through his front end and the way his shoulder and knees assembled, maybe tone down his tail head. But at the end of the day, that is the wide, stout-made calf that's ultra powerful. He is huge ribbed, and that's why he is so massive over his top and back out of his hip. But unfortunately, I still like cattle that are built right. I still like cattle that profile well, and that's what gets him beat in a very tough class. And unfortunately, the young man shows an awfully nice third-place steer. The young lady that rounds out the class with her red heifer is one that's got a good amount of shape behind her shoulder. I like how she handles behind her shoulder in terms of shape and expression, but that calf is one that's a little bit more conventional from the side. I want to extend her out, maybe make her just a little bit nicer profiling, and one that's not built quite as stout in terms of her foot or bone, not quite as bold in shape of her rib as what our other cattle are in front of her. And so unfortunately, just found a tough class to be in because that heifer could certainly work up higher in other classes that we've seen earlier today. But let's put our hands together for that class of exhibitors.
For 4-H Market Beef, Class 10. In 4th place, Shayla Haggerty from 56 Ranchers 4-H. In 3rd, Wesley Pausick from Valley Center Country 4-H. In 2nd, Kylie Conine from 56 Ranchers 4-H. And in 1st, Kiara Conine from Ramona Stars 4-H. Next in the ring for 4-H Market Beef is Class 11.
Another good class drops in next, and the young man steer that leads off the class does so for me rather logically. That's a wide, muscular one that's big-ribbed and practical. I love just how massive he is behind his shoulder, all the way back out of his hip. He's another one probably I like to maybe tone down his tailhead and see him just grab the surface and take that step just with a little bit more authority, just a little bit more comfort. But he's plenty sound for me, and one to couple that with some extra carcass value and some added presence and look from the side certainly becomes the logical class winner in my opinion. The close decision for me was between 2 and 3 because they're completely different kinds of calves. The one that I end up falling with in second, I call sound enough. He's certainly not near as sound as what our third place steer is, but aside from structure, that calf has a substantial advantage in terms of the shape of his forerib and his body. in terms of how wide he is at his base, and that's why he's got a sizable advantage as well when you get your hands on him. He is so much more massive and so much more square right behind his shoulder, all the way back over his rib and his loin. And he's also a calf that handles smoother over his 12th and 13th than what our calf in third does. He's also a steer that stays leveler in his top line and square back out of his hip. The young man steer that falls in third is one that definitely owns the structure advantage. He's the better footed, looser jointed steer that takes a longer and more comfortable stride. That's a calf that stays smoother in his shoulder and maintains some extra cleanliness and some extension up front when compared to our third place steer. But with all that being said, that's the steer that is by some margin the flattest in the shape to his forerib, and that's why he's not near as impressive behind his shoulder. That's the calf that gets flatter out of his pin set all the way through his lower quarter and stifle. If that calf has any more muscle or power, I swap the pair and go with him in second all day long, but unfortunately it's still a market steer show, and so I got to make muscle a priority, and I just wish he had just a little bit more of it to put him in second. But three nice calves nonetheless. Let's put our hands together for those three individuals.
For 4-H Market Beef, Class 11. In third, Benson Pina from Valley Center Country 4-H. In second, Rebecca Berkowitz from 56 Ranchers 4-H. And in first, Clayton Kritz from 56 Ranchers 4-H. Next in the ring, we have 4-H Market Beef, Class 12.
I'm gonna leave you to do it. No problem.
Real nice class comes in next, and perhaps maybe my favorite we've seen so far, one that's just real awesome structured. I love the build and the structural integrity this guy's got. He's got just a big old rib laid into him, and that kind of sets the foundation for his extra topside muscle and product that he's got working down the top side of his skeleton. And for one that's built that good and has the kind of muscle he does, it's impressive to still see him fit together in profile with such quality and presence from the profile. An awfully nice steer to win this next class. 2, 3, and 4 is where it became a touch closer, in my opinion. At the end of the day, I thought the calf in second was, of the set, of the bottom 3, was the nicest profiling, was the soundest structured steer. When you got your hands on him, that's the one that definitely has the most muscle shape and expression over his rib and loin. He's the calf that views extremely well from the profile in terms of his balance and his attractiveness. The calf in third of the bottom 3, that's the boldest rib, biggest topped, biggest ended one, who's got the most mass and dimension of those. But unfortunately, whenever we set these cattle into motion, that's the calf that reads straighter through his shoulder and knee. He's the calf that's more upright in the set to his hock and his rear pasterns. If we can maybe set him back in his angles, give him a little bit more comfort and set there, that would help him move a little better, and in my opinion would help him swap up and slide into the second spot. The calf that rounds out the class, our 4th place steer, is super mellow and easy feeding and practical. He's one that's certainly smooth and mellow over his last 2 ribs when you get your hands on him, but unfortunately he's the plainest one in terms of his profile view. He's also the one that's the plainest in regards to muscle shape and expression. I just want to power him up. But I got to give my credit to the young man there, sticking with it. That calf was giving him fits, and so let's give him and all our exhibitors in that class a nice round of applause.
For 4-H Market Beef, Class 12. In 4th place, Cole Harkler Road from Valley Center Country 4-H. In 3rd, Kaysen Dunham from Valley Center 4-H. In 2nd, Amara Good from Manzanita 4-H. And in 1st, Ethan Rockwell from Valley Center 4-H. Next in the ring is the Champion Drive from 4-H.
Well, what a lineup. Let's go ahead and put our hands together, those of us in the stands and standing ringside, for our 4-H exhibitors. It's been a blast. The cattle have been amazing here in the 4-H show, and so very pleasant to see that. Whenever we take a step back and look at them, I'm very pleased with our lineup that we have all the way from the young man's lightest weight class winner to our heaviest class winner that the young man's showing back here. And so I'm not going to spend time to go through and talk each specific one. I've already shared my thoughts and opinions on all these cattle before. I'll just say there's a real nice one here, in my opinion, to win. The decision for reserve is a bit tougher, and I'll take a look at that here in a moment. Once we bring our second place in, I'll put the microphone down and go pick you a champion.
For 4-H Market Beef, your grand champion is Ethan Rockwell from Valley Center 4-H.
Young lady brings her second place steer in that we just evaluated moments ago, and one that I talked about was really nice balanced, really attractive, had lots of shape and expression, and so certainly a calf that adds to the quality of the lineup. In my opinion, behind our champion, which I thought was a fairly logical decision, I think it comes down between a pair of steers, and I'll take another look at this lineup, the two steers I think that are in contention, and I'll shake the hand of our reserve champion.
And your reserve grand champion for Market Beef is Hannah Haggerty from 56 Ranchers 4-H. Up next in the ring, we have Grange and Independent Market Beef.
Well, only a single entry here into our first class in the grain show, and the young lady brings us a nice steer that's extremely sound and loose constructed, a calf that handles with a great deal of shape and expression behind his shoulder, all the way back over his rib and his loin, a calf that's extremely extended and long-bodied, one that when the young lady gets him put together is one that is able to keep his top line in him, but as soon as we set him into motion, is one that kind of starts to roach in his spine and kind of drop out of his pin set. And so maybe we'd like to redesign a couple things structurally, which would allow him to balance better, but a calf nonetheless does a lot of things right and is easy to appreciate, and we'll see him moments again here in the future in our Grange champion selection after our next class. Let's put our hands together for the young lady.
For Grange and Independent Market Beef Class 13, your first place is Michaela Rogers from East County Grange. Next in the ring for Grange and Independent Market Beef is Class 14.
Got our second class in. Let's go ahead and give both these exhibitors here a round of applause, please, for their efforts. Young lady steer that leads off this second class is one that's bolder in the turn to his rib. He's got a whole lot more expansion and turn there through the center portion of his body, and that's why he's quite a bit more massive and shapely when you get your hands on him and you handle those cattle behind their shoulder and back over their rib and their loin. It's a bigger footed, stouter, structured steer that's able to balance better because he's stronger in his top line and leveler back out of his hip. And he still owns the pair in terms of mass and dimension from behind the cattle when you study them out of their pin set to their lower quarter and stifle. A nice way to get things started here in Class 2. The young lady steer that ends up in second, that's the mellower, deeper bodied steer that handles real smooth over his last couple of ribs. But unfortunately, that steer just doesn't handle with the same amount of product or power as what's found in our class winner. I just want to muscle him up and make him have more turn and expression there behind his shoulder and when you view him from behind the cattle as well. But a nice class nonetheless. Let's give him one more hand, if you will, please.
For Grange and Independent Market Beef, Class 14. In second place, Penelope Biven from San Diego 4-H. And in first, Faith Hanna from East County Grange. Next in the ring, we have our champion tribe for Grange and Independent Market Beef.
Well, only 3 head in our Grange or Independent show here in our Market Beef show, but 3 good ones that we can find things to appreciate in all 3 of them. And so for me, there's one that probably rises to the top and makes it an easy decision for champion, and then you gets a touch closer for reserve champion in my mind, but the one that suits me the best in terms of being wide, stout, and muscular, but still being able to stay fundamental and functional in terms of its structural build and able to pose with some balance and some presence from the side is the young lady's heaviest class winner. She'll be our champion. Congratulations.
Our grand champion is Faith Hanna from East County Grange. And our reserve is Michaela Rogers from East County Grange.
Bring that second place in behind our champion in one, like we talked about, real practical and mellow. I love the easy feeding look that he brings to us here, from a practical fat cattle standpoint. Both of these cattle come with some structural issues, and so you got to make a call. One's got a little more body and maybe is a bit smoother. The other one's got more muscle shape and expression, and definitely has the advantage in terms of cutability and probably on the yield grade side of the grid whenever we think about them hanging up as carcass animals. My second favorite steer that fits me the second best is going to be our lightweight, our black and white steer. She'll be our reserve champion. Congratulations.
Our reserve champion for Grange and Independent Market Beef is Michaela Rogers from East County Grange. And that concludes it for our Market Beef show. Can we please give a hand to our exhibitors as well as our judge, Landon, from coming all the way out from College Station, Texas to come and support us.
they moving those rails and putting the whole arena? Or? How busy do you think it's going? Yeah, for moving like and I'm like, really like all okay, so I'm gonna probably for that I'll have now pick a sit here. I'm gonna tap it there. Reinvented the wheel.